nothing called retirement for you. Kind of run us through how you got involved with technology, how you got involved with the digital agenda, innovation, and where it's going in your life right now.
Very simple. After my first term in office in Brussels as a competition commissioner, there was no way that there should be a second one. And people were saying, you deserve a second term, for you did a good job. Well, if that's true, yes or no, that's up to you. But having said that, I am of a different political color of the then Prime Minister. And he didn't offer me the post, for he kept it in his own party, so to say. And Barroso wants me to continue, and he said, please push. Nothing was done. So it took quite a while, and the public in the Netherlands was organizing a move, so to say, to stimulate that I would still be in for the second term. That was rather late. The Prime Minister just jumped over his own shadow, and he said, well, okay, it's you, the candidate for the Netherlands. But then all the charming and nice and interesting and sexy portfolios were given away to the other member states. And there were 4 left, and Barroso said, well, I'm happy that you will join the new team. 4 left, up to you which one. And I saw the digital agenda, and I thought, that's rather new, and that is fascinating. So it happened, and I was blank like a paper, and started. And I felt that this was the answer for the very near future, so to say, for tomorrow. And so it happened.
It's interesting because even 5, 8 years ago, when you spoke to people in traditional industry in Europe or in Brussels, you'd get this feeling of fear of technology, fear that it would attack jobs, it would take away jobs. You still hear that fear. You drove that digital agenda significantly. What did you see that other people in Brussels didn't?
Well, I'm not certain that everyone in Brussels didn't see it, but I had a great team, and there was a lot of inspiration, so to say. But it isn't a threat, and I never thought it as a threat. On the contrary, I thought this is a challenge for Europe. It's a challenge to be one of the parties playing the game in the global scene, for I was aware that with the digital technology that everything would change, and that it would also give an opportunity to politicians to be closer to their potential voters, for it's influencing everybody. So for me, this was the most important portfolio, and I mentioned it last week in Berlin when I was joining with Günther Oettinger, who is my successor in a way. I'm followed up by 2 for a vice president and a commissioner, so the portfolio is broader, more important, and so on. And I said to him, this is the most important portfolio. It's connected with e-health, with culture, with education, with economy, with environment, name it. So in that position, to just push Europe and to push the players is great, and it is a challenge. It is never, ever a threat.
That challenge has translated to your pushing the digital single agenda when you were there. They now have the DSM agenda they're pushing. A lot of companies, and people in this audience will jump in and they will have their opinions, find that doing business across 28 countries is really hard. The cost of doing business, the legal costs in each individual country. Do you think the DSM making a single market in Europe is really going to change that? Is it going to allow us to have the Silicon Valley in Europe?
We shouldn't copy Silicon Valley. We should build our own, and we can, and we are doing it. By the way, there is a single market. It's not completely implemented. And sometimes you need eternal life in politics, and I don't believe in eternal life. And one of those issues, and there you can see it is a mix in the European Union, for political reasons are bringing members of the family together, and economic reasons are bringing them together. And sometimes it's at a different level, it's at a different moment, a different location, and so on. For one of those examples, and I can really feel that some people are a bit worried, to put it in a diplomatic way, and I'm not a diplomat, so I should put it in a different way, that people are saying, goodness gracious, what are they doing in Brussels? Taking roaming. So we started, get rid of roaming. It is old-fashioned, it's not fitting in a single digital market system, completely not, for there are no borders, so to say. Well, recently there are a few borders in Europe, but there are no borders, and still the telcos in their pricing system are using borders as a system in which they can get more money. We took the decision, let's get rid of that idiot system, for it's old-fashioned. Yeah, absolutely. And then I was confronted, number one, with the telcos, and they said, when we had bilateral discussions, they said, you have a point, Neelie. It is indeed, it's not connected with the face of today of the market. But we are earning money. And I said, normally spoken, I'm not blaming someone when he's earning money, but in this case, you are earning it on a level that is not appropriate. And again, diplomatic say. And they said, we need it for getting possibilities for investing. And I said, come on, you are not investing, or you are not investing enough. So take another business model. All in all, they were lobbying like hell. They were pushing and so on. So step by step, I got member states on my side, but only when there was a time schedule in which there are step-by-step proposals to get rid of that roaming. Can you explain, as a politician, or, well, I'm not a politician anymore, you
definitely
are
not a
yet, you are not yet, so please. But having said that, you can't explain it to citizens that they have to pay for such stupid things. So we should be aware that we should be more realistic in just getting points in which we can prove that Europe is making sense. And in this country, it's making sense now to explain that you could never, ever put a proposal at the table when there was not Europe talking about getting rid of roaming. And there are a lot of other issues that are connected with that.
And I know the audience will want to ask you questions, so please do start thinking about the questions you want to put to Neelie. I know we have one in the corner. I'm not sure what the mic handlers are, but we'll come back to you. In the meantime, I think what I wanted to ask you was, the speed at which getting rid of roaming has happened, very slow. Every country has to ratify, validate. It brings up this whole thing with the Brexit question as well, that it is a very slow process of change in Europe. And is that going to be a driving force for countries in Europe to want to leave? Because technology waits for no one.
Here we are, and that is exactly that you have to just connect your powers. For we are the biggest economic market on earth, the European Union. It is incredible what a power we have. Are we using it? Not every day, so to say, but it is in potential. Having said that, there are a lot of issues, and I'm getting a lot of inspiration from the startups. As you were mentioning, I'm an envoy for a startup, Delta, for the climate in the Netherlands. And it's nearby finished, another fortnight, and then it's over. But one of the proposals we pushed to the Dutch government, who has the European presidency at the moment, is the European Startup Visa. That sounds, well, what's that? Can you eat it? You can just deal with that. It means that a startup with a non-European passport, when he can prove that he is reliable and not criminal, blah, 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 and that he is a sound startup, so to say, if he is accepted in the UK, for example, or in the Netherlands or whatever, after a couple of months, then he can roll out his startup business to other parts of Europe. And that makes sense. For, in most cases, a startup, when he is successful or she is successful, then she won't stop or he won't stop at the borders of that member state. So that's easy. don't ask me how many hours we had to spend for just getting that in the hands of the Dutch presidency and the Dutch presidency to get it through the member states. Now it will be accepted. And that makes sense, for it's a global scene. A startup is not asking, is this the border and do I need to stop? The startup is asking, is this a potential market? Would that make sense for my potential success? And it's a global market, I'm repeating myself. So that for us is of main importance, and there are already good examples. And don't mix up, and that is what some governments do if they are fearing, and fear is never a good advisor, so to say, that it is going down. In principle, it's going up, so just push it and take the opportunity.
And the opportunities of 550 million consumers in the European Union. I know we had a question at the back.
Following up from that answer, do you think that the implemented digital single market and that equivalent to Silicon Valley would be possible if the UK is not part of the European Union, and not only in terms of how big the market is, but also in terms of the financial backup that the UK can give to all those startups?
I'm a strong believer in keeping everyone within the family, and also the UK, for more than one reason. And if you allow me to add a couple of issues. You are absolutely main in just pushing a type of economy that I'm in favor for, entrepreneurial, making clear, transparent, and using the single market. And at that time, at the start of the European Union, and that, at that time with another name, 6 member states took that initiative, 6 males, females were at home, thanks heaven that that is changed in the meantime, but perhaps they were advisor to their husbands or partners or whatever. From that 6 on, there was the thought of there should be a single market. And then later on, the UK joined the game, and they were profiting. They were taking a lot of positive effect of the single market. And by the way, it's win-win. So the UK was instrumental to get a functioning single market, and the single market in total was giving profits to the UK. When the UK was entering, by the way, the European family, they were called the sick old men. And rightly so, for the economy was absolutely a disaster. If you are looking now, UK, and talking about the economy, is one of the best performers in the single market. And therefore, the thought that it is or is a wrong one. It is not when you are just splitting that all the opportunities are staying. That is not the case. And it's not the case that then you can just look the other side of the Atlantic. It is not the case for the European continent, so to say, plus all the member states. The European continent is too important for also the United States to say, we also take a devised part that is not anymore connected with the single market. So talking about a digital single market, and there again, it is the same type of thinking. A digital single market is borderless, and you can't exclude and say, but my borders are different and I just move to the other side. It will be in the global scene also, and Obama was mentioning that, and whatever administration, and that is for me even more worrying, for I'm not that positive about what's going on there, and I'm still praying and hoping and so on. But one point is absolutely certain: it will be an administration that is more inward looking. So then we as Europe even have more responsibility and more challenges, by the way, to get all those opportunities and get rid of the Putin thoughts and working like he is doing with his country. We should take over that power game in the world, but then we need strong partners. So I'm absolutely in favor for staying. And I think that what some of the politicians doing in this country is nearby questionable. And again, that's a diplomatic answer. If you have double cards in your hand, because there is also another scenario that is worrying me, for it's damaging politics.
And it's very rare to hear someone, even formally from Brussels, comment on Brexit at this point. Please grab Neelie as you spend the day today and ask her all the questions you want, because we are running out of time. Neelie, we've got about 20 seconds. Tell this audience something that we've never known about you, never read about you. Because we've read everything.
That's true, that's true. I mentioned it last session, not evening, but last afternoon. So they can say, we know it already.
Very
I do have 2 grandchildren, US citizens, also Dutch passport. At that time, my story, 4 and 6. And I'm Skyping every Sunday afternoon, more fun for the grandma than for the grandchildren. They are still behaving, by the way. And at a certain moment, the youngest at that time, 4, was asking me, Nene, what's your age? And I said, honestly, at that time, 72. And she said, 72? And you are still alive? So that was pushing me. And that is something. And I do have one other, and that's the nicest story. Sometimes people are asking, do you have a role model? Well, I'm not a great believer in role models, but sometimes you are all role models, and don't underestimate, for you really are role models. But having said that, in my last days in Brussels, I also had research budgets in my portfolio connected with innovation and digital technology. There was a project with robots.
I will have to rush you because...
Yeah, robots. And in that robot project in Italy, universities, researchers, academics, and a lady, an old lady. And I was always surprised, what is that old lady doing in that project? I visited her in my last day in office in Rome, and she was 92 at that time. I asked her, explain to me what is your connection. She explained to me what was her connection. And I said, how did your life start?
Yeah.
And she said, 17, married. And my husband didn't accept that I'm traveling, that I'm going to school, and so on. She said, 72, her age at that time, 72. That was D-Day. And I said, D-Day? What are you talking of, 72? She said, my husband passed away. And I said, you have to explain a little bit more. And she said, I started to go to school, I started to go to university, I started to travel, I started to write books, and so on. So, lesson, never too late, never use the argument.
I cannot end it on a better note.